Yes, it's been far too long since I did one of these, an essentials video where I deep dive into a genre of music and give you 5 albums that I believe are truly essential for that particular genre. I've done about 12, 13, 14, something like that videos at this point. The playlist I can link in the description if you want to watch me talk about all kinds of other genres. I do a video on micro house, I do one on art pop, I do one on funk music. There's loads of them out there already, and I'm going to keep going on with this genre dive exploration and give you plenty more videos in the future as well. So make sure you subscribe to stick around for more of these, and yeah, let's get tucked in and listen to me talk about what I think are some massively essential albums in the genre of soul music, a genre of music that originated in the 1950s, 60s, popularized of course by African Americans, that combines the styles of gospel music and rhythm and blues and kind of just mashes it together to create what we know as soul, with these incredible vocal performances, these really heartfelt vocal deliveries that just makes the genre feel so powerful and feels so impactful. And at its best, it truly is some of the best music really you're going to hear, in my opinion. I think it's just an amazing genre, full of so much life, full of so much power, full of so much heart, full of so much like anguish, and always has something to say. There's a call and response combination that comes through as well in the music with a lot of the singers back in the day. The popularization of it through Motown Records gave it such a huge mainstream pull and swing as well. Yeah, I've got lots of good things to say about soul. I could go further into the history of it, but I feel as though I don't want to just become like a bit of a Wikipedia page article. I just do like to give you a little bit of a snippet of what entails within the genre before I get into my essentials, as I do in all of these videos, really. But yeah, I hate the idea of like becoming just somebody that you could just Google, and I'm just telling you things you can Google. I don't really want to do that, but you know, just a bit of background on the soul genre. Of course, plenty of pivotal artists: Otis Redding, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, the godfather of soul himself, James Brown. Some of these artists won't actually appear in this video, and it's not to say I don't believe they're essential. I'm just picking 5 of my own personal ones that I like to throw in there that I believe that you should check out. And I always throw in a couple that maybe aren't as talked about, maybe aren't as famous, give you a bit of, you know, a few gems that you could tackle and dig deep into in case you haven't heard them before. But of course I am going to give you some real classics as well. So let's tuck in and talk about my first essential for this video. I mean, come on, Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. I had to start here, and I feel like I could just end here and not saying anything else, because like, what am I truly gonna say that could really capture the brilliance of this album? Like, come on, man. This is one of those albums that speaks for itself. I'm going to be repeating what everybody has already said for years, really. It's just an absolute masterpiece. I suppose the one thing I will say from my own personal experience with this album is that I always liked it, but for some reason it took a while to really like grow on me. So I don't know, maybe if you are somebody that hears it and thinks, oh, it's just an overrated album, I would implore you to sit with it, because for me personally, I've always liked it, but it only recently, in the past couple of years, I've really grown to value it as probably in my like top 25 albums ever, if I were to ever really do a list of such massive vastness of music, to kind of boil it all down to the greatest ever. It's very hard to do, but I think now I'd be more confident than ever to say that it would be somewhere in my top 25. It just is just wonderfully magnificent, man. I think initially I wasn't quite as enamored with the vocal melodies. I always felt like the album lacked a bit of melody, but honestly over time it's become the opposite of that, and those sharp vocal melodies, those harmonizations, those background vocals really truly bring this album to a special level. And Marvin Gaye throughout the album is clueless. He's asking many questions. He has no idea what's friggin' going on at all. But I like how no matter what time period we're in, this album feels completely relevant. And I know that's a bit of a cliche stereotype thing to say from like a music reviewer or whatever, to say this album feels more relevant than it did back when it came out. I know a lot of reviewers and critics say that kind of thing, but I just think the way this album's structured and the way this album's penned makes it always feel like you can apply it to any situation, because so much of the time there is just a ridiculous amount of confusion. And while Marvin Gaye was singing about something completely different back in the 1970s to what you could apply it to today, it still feels like you can attach it to that. And that's one of the things that's really underrated about soul music as well. I could mention Stevie Wonder here too, and it would apply to him as well with that, because it gets very political. Like, there are very, very political songs in the world of soul music. When you think of the time that these albums were being made, you can obviously understand where it would come from, but it's a bit of an underrated element of it. Like, you talk about punk music, you talk about hip-hop music, obviously political genres at the heart and the root of them, but soul is too. And I think Marvin Gaye captured something wonderful on this album with the disarray, confusion, the state of the world, and yeah, it lives on. It's one of the best ever. Of course, I was mentioning it here.
Hey, baby, let's get away, let's go somewhere. Oh, baby, can we?
I really could have picked any Aretha album, honestly. If you were to ask me, like, right now, name the greatest singer ever, vocalist ever, I think my answer is always going to be Aretha. I don't know if you can ever capture the brilliance of her voice. You can really hit the notes that she does, the power, the range, the emotion, everything about her voice is just impeccable to me. And while some people may dismiss singers for just only having one thing, I've always thought that Aretha is more than just that too, because on her greatest albums, she is super soulful. She can get a little funky as well. She gets powerful. She gets really into the nitty gritty of the feelings and emotions like no other, really. And I think Young, Gifted and Black, honestly, is a great entry point to her music. While you could argue what her best album is, because a lot of people have different opinions on that, actually. She's quite a varied artist when it comes to people talking about her best work. Doesn't really seem to be ever one answer for that. Young, Gifted and Black, if it is your answer, I'm not going to argue with it. It's absolutely spellbinding at times. The title track is just a wondrous song with, again, just these really like quiet, hollow moments that she just leaves for you to feel the emotion just simmering. It is really fantastic. And for me personally, one of the best songs ever lands on this album, man. Daydreaming. If you've never heard the song Daydreaming by Aretha Franklin, I promise you right now, you need to hear it. Oh, a gorgeous song. Absolutely beautiful. Just something about it locks me in every time. Truly one of the best songs ever. So yeah, lots to love about Aretha and her music. I went with this album, but you could honestly go with any. What You See is What You Get from the Dramatics. An album here that I'm throwing in that's a little more obscure, if you want to call it that. Not really an album that you see talked about very much at all amongst like the kind of music critic circles. For some reason it's gotten a little left behind. But for me, it's an easy essential for the soul genre, because this album just has a lot of life to it. It at times is bordering on funk. You could easily throw it in that category, but I think there's enough soul on this album to make it really fall into this category. I mean, the track about the hot pants, I mean, come on, man. What a little jam that one is. It's so silly, so fun. There's just a lot of character to this. The vocalist just has a voice that's so commanding and really like just lures you in. You can't not be paying attention to what he's saying. Great voice, but yeah, there is something really cool about his voice as well that just really stands out amongst the pack. Absolutely love the title track as well. If you're a fan of Injury Reserve, I would implore you to listen to this track, because you will catch a really little fun sample. So any Injury Reserve fans that stick on this channel and watch my videos, please do check out the title track of this album, because you will catch a nice little fun sample there. And you'll never look back. But that to me is easily the best track, one of my favourite soul songs ever too. Yeah, lots of rock and rhythm to this album, But for me personally, I just wanted to mention it because it just doesn't get the flowers it deserves, and it really is up there with being one of my favourite soul albums ever too. Similar to Aretha, Al Green is another artist where you could name a bunch of his albums and it would pretty much make sense. I think the general consensus though is that Let's Stay Together is his best work, which for me for a long time I did feel similar to, but I wanted to mention Get Next to You because actually this has ended up growing to be my favourite Al Green album. There's something far more gospel inspired by this one. I did mention at the start of the video, obviously, the clear combination of gospel sounds that come through in soul music, but he just touches it up a little bit more in that gospel range to make this album sound quite unique, honestly. There's lots of talks of religion and God on this album, which doesn't particularly put me off personally as somebody that isn't really religious themselves. But, I think if you are a religious person, it probably would be something that gravitates you towards this album as well, which is kind of a win-win situation, really. But yeah, absolutely love the vocal performances on this track. Just a great amount of bluesy rhythm to some of these. Are you lonely for me, baby? Da-da-da-da-da. Are you lonely for me, baby? So good, so fun, so soulful. Yeah, I had to mention Al Green. It would feel wrong not to mention him. But truly, true great of the game. One of the best vocalists ever as well. Yeah, no brainer. And the fifth and final mention, no particular order by the way to any of these albums, no slight on anything here, they're all equally worth mentioning. I wanted to mention a very recent album with Yola here, who I think is one of the most exciting talents at the moment, one of the best vocalists of our current generation crop of singers that I just felt needed mentioning in this video. Now, there are times on this album that she blends the sounds of country and soul together, which forms a really cool sound, but I still think at the heart and the soul of this album, this truly still is for me a soul record. And yeah, the emotion, the power, the delivery in Yola's voice really gets me, man. Really gets me. You feel the emotion, you feel all the feelings as well whenever she's singing. I just think there's something truly special here, and I think there's more to her as well. I think we could get even more great music from her at some point. I don't think she's going to stop here and only make this one really great album. But yeah, while it is a 2020s album, and I've kind of broke a little bit of the trend here, taking it out of the 60s, 70s that I was for the other albums, I still think it is an essential soul release. I think maybe if you're somebody that is younger, haven't really delved much into the sounds of soul, I think Yola is a great little entry point for you, because I think she sounds retro, but she also feels very modern, feels very fresh. The production feels very new and today. I just thought it felt like a good one to throw in there. Dancing Away in Tears, man. Oh, that song. What a cracking breakup song that is. Really wholesome, completely non-bitter about the relationship, just really hoping that the person will be okay, I wish you well, all that kind of thing. Really beautiful little track, that one of my favorite tracks of the 2020 so far. Yeah, sure, it's not quite in the same realm as some of the other albums I mentioned here, from a different era. It's outside of that Motown time period, obviously, but an essential. And that is it from me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you've agreed with my picks and you've enjoyed me delving into the history of soul and giving you 5 essentials. Don't forget though that there is potential for me to do part 2s of this series. Just because it hasn't been mentioned in this video doesn't mean to say I won't do a part 2 in the future and give you 5 more essentials, because I still think I might do that at some point and go back and talk about some of the other genres I've already talked about so far. And yeah, give you even more albums that I think are worth your time as well. So that is it from me. Hopefully you've got some new recommendations, or at the very least agreed with my picks here. Do make sure you subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Tell me your 5 essentials in the comments as well. Would love to see what you guys would pick. And yeah, share the video around. Check out my Patreon if you're feeling really generous. Have a good day. Goodbye.